Hi. I'm back in my car again, and I'm driving again, and I'm thinking again. Things I'm good at. Driving and thinking. Uh, so I haven't seen a movie in a little bit, so today's going to be a little bit more rambly, but I feel like there's some stuff I'd like to talk about. First, I will talk about the movie that I did watch, but I didn't finish it. I watched most of War of the Worlds. You know the one I'm talking about. The very, very popular right now Ice Cube fiasco, if you will. I didn't like it. I don't pay for the Prime that gets the no commercials, so every now and then your movie will get interrupted with your movie will continue after this short break, and for me, no, it didn't. I got to that short break and I turned that right off. It was really, man, it was bad. It was just it was unwatchably bad. I realize I'm older. I'm almost 40. I'm not a big fan of the Zoom call movie or the webcam movie or whatever you want to call them. There's been a few instances where it's been used well. I think about Mythic Quest and their COVID episode where it's all like webcam. In the end, like you get like Rob showing up to the house, you see it in the background. Like there's been some people who have figured out how to use it. They've cracked the code. This one, nope. No. It was one of the worst movies I think I've ever tried to watch. And it's unfortunate because I feel had it not been an Amazon Prime exclusive and I got to watch that in a theater, we would have had a really good time. We would have laughed. We'd have laughed some more, mostly at the movie's expense. And then we would have gone home and we'd have had, laughed some more at the movie's expense. But instead, watching it in bed with my wife, we both just kind of like, I think I'd rather rewatch The Office again. I don't know why I go to The Office, but anything other than that piece of junk. That's all I'm going to say on that, because I don't want to waste your time any more than it wasted mine. If you're thinking about watching it, I say don't. Unless you have a very big group of friends, a lot of people you can sit down and laugh a whole bunch at just an awful movie. If you want to see Ice Cube run out of focus and try to open a door when it's locked, I guess, that's a movie. Not for me. The thing I thought would be kind of fun to talk about as I'm driving home, horror movies. There is a thing, when you start dating someone new, if you're a horror movie fan, you have to test the waters a little bit. I like horror movies. How do you feel about horror movies? And depending on your flavor of choice for horror movies, it can be a disastrous endeavor, is what I'll call it. It can be a big old mess. Say for a while, I was very into like Martyrs was one of my favorite movies. Like, the French horror film that is supremely fucked up and upsetting. And as I've gotten older, I've revisited it, and it doesn't quite hit the way that it did when I was younger, but I still appreciate it for taking such a bold swing. When I showed it to my then girlfriend, now wife, she was not a fan. But she does like horror films. So, I'm still in good company. I'm still very, very, very happy with the way my life has turned out. But she's still not the biggest fan of horror movies in general. She likes her ghost movies. She likes her spooky movies. A well-done movie is still worth it, even if it is a horror film. But horror is not enough to get her in the door. And I think that's fair. The reason why I like to bring up horror, though, and like to talk about horror, is because to me, my opinion, for whatever it's worth, horror is the last playground in film. And playgrounds in film are becoming more and more rare. A lot of them are being kind of overtaken by AI, which is, its own version of a playground, I guess. Not one that I really support or am a fan of, but, it's also not going away, so there's not much we can do about it. I don't want to do this all about AI. I want to talk about horror. So horror, to me, like, there's a whole bunch of different genres in horror. There's possession horror, there's religious horror. Those are kind of often of the same ilk. There is slashers, there's body horror, there's, tons and tons and tons and tons and tons. And horror, to me, often gets the complaint that it wasn't scary. And, that has never really bothered me much. Because, after once you've been scared by a jump scare, I mean, that might still make you go, "Whoa!" But it's not going to freak you out. And you're not going to go home and, hide under your covers. It's just a movie. But that doesn't take away from the craftsmanship, from the idea of using something truly terrifying, or what would be truly terrifying in person, to tell a relatable story. Because being scared, I think, is one of the most human emotions possible. And using that to talk about other things, I think is, it's a very interesting thing to do. Take, I know I talked about the Babadook once in a video, so I won't go over that one again, but, take like, It Follows. It Follows has a whole bunch of themes to it. And, I think it's open for interpretation to a large extent, but it was done with extreme creativity and a very, very impressive paintbrush, if you will. But it was scary and it was freaky. And, did I cower under my covers? No. But the idea stuck with me. The idea of that thing constantly out there following you at all times, whether you like it or not, it's coming. That's freaky. And, you could take that for like mortality. I know there's a lot of people say it's about STDs because, the death thing is, or STIs, because that thing is transmission via sexual encounters. There's a lot of different things there that you can really dig into, but all in all, it's just a really good concept executed well. And I think that's kind of what I want to talk about here is horror to me really can turn people off because they don't like to feel scared. Because like I said, that human emotion that everybody feels, and that's not necessarily always an entertaining emotion. And I think that's fair. And I'm not trying to here to try to tell you that, you need to love horror. But the thing I like about horror, and I can do the same conversation about comic books in a similar way, is I think there is a version of horror out there for everyone. And if you don't like horror, I honestly believe you just haven't found your flavor yet. And I think that's, to me, the most important part of the genre. Because if you don't like romantic comedies, there's no magic bullet romantic comedy that's going to get you to suddenly like romantic comedies. That's just not a thing that's going to work because they're not all the same. That'd be rude. But they're not all... I mean, they're similar enough that if you don't like that brand of humor, it's not going to get any different. If you don't like, action movies, you don't like comic book movies, you don't like these things, they're similar enough that the next one isn't going to really get you going. But with horror, specifically horror, everyone can be so different that you don't know if you like it yet or not. And I think that's really cool. Like you take, for example, one of my favorite films of all time. I'm not the biggest Tim Burton guy. Man, I love Sleepy Hollow. I think that is one of the most beautiful movies ever made. I think it has some wonderful performances in it. And I think it's a horror film, even though it's not scary at all. I mean, there's some parts that will make you go, and, some, good head choppings and all that sort of stuff. That's what you get with the Headless Horseman. But it's just an incredibly engaging film that feels like it takes place in a very lived-in and real world. And if you didn't see Sleepy Hollow just because you don't like horror movies, then you missed out on something that really isn't that scary, but is a very beautiful story. And it's a very old story. Everyone knows the story, Ichabod Crane and all that. And I think horror is uniquely poised to be the one genre where you can do this stuff. And it was something like DC Comics was kind of tapping into there for a little bit with the DCEU, where they were talking to James Wan a little bit, because he's a very big horror guy. And, kind of using horror as a way to branch into, these big comic movies. You look at David Sandberg and his Shazam movie, really fun, lighthearted film, but also has really scary moments in it. Like, that guy gets horror. I mean, that's where he came from, though. He did horror shorts with his wife, and, lights out. The horror short is awesome. The movie, it's okay. I liked it. I never saw it after I saw it in theaters, but, the one time it was a good watch if you're on the fence. It's a cool idea. You turn on the light, thing goes away. Lights are off, it's there. Who's not afraid of the dark? At least a little bit. But you go back to all the originals, not the originals, but what really kicked off, at least in my opinion, the huge horror craze, like the slashers of the 80s, the Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. These movies are just, they're not the same by any stretch, but they all pushed each other forward and really made slashers the genre that it is now. But that doesn't mean that that's what horror is. And I think that's what I like about horror. You can't really define it beyond being scared is a relatable concept. I've lost my thread a little bit, but I think you get the point. I hope you do. So with that in mind, here you go. I'm going to give you my top 5 horror recommendations. These aren't necessarily my favorite films, but they're ones that if you have not watched horror, I'm going to give you some trials. And they might push you. You might hate them. But I think they're good places to go if you've never really given horror a chance. So number 1, we'll start with number 5. Number 5, the 5th horror movie that I think if you've never tried a horror movie before, you absolutely need to give it a shot is The Exorcist. Exorcist is pure religion horror, but as a dad, man, that is the horror of being a parent. Holy shit. Like, I have never seen a better depiction of what it is to be a parent, not knowing what's going on with your kid and just having that pure terror of being helpless while your kid is going through it. Woo! Hard to watch. Phenomenal movie. Number 4 is Jaws. Not really a horror movie, but also not really an action-adventure movie, but it's still in the genre. And it is one of the most approachable horror movies. Approachable horror movies I've ever seen. It still has people dying. Fuck, they kill a kid in the first 10 minutes and bloodily kill a kid in the first 10 minutes. And then have another guy die in front of another kid. Like, it's tough. It's a rough movie. But it's amazingly well made. Like, that is some of the best filmmaking out there. An absolute must watch. Number 3 is Friday the 13th / Halloween. I think you got to watch them both. And I know that's cheating. I use 2 in 1. But I think it's important. Because without Halloween, you don't get Friday the 13th. And without Friday the 13th, you don't get my favorite guy, Jason. Even this shirt is designed after Jason Voorhees. I love Jason Voorhees. I love Friday the 13th. But I'm not a fool. I know we don't get it without Halloween. So you got to watch them both. But that is, to me, the slasher genre. I know slashers started before Halloween, but they didn't turn into what they are now, or at least kind of are now, until then. And man alive, Halloween is just a perfect film. Perfect. And then Friday the 13th comes along, and is it perfect? No. But it's rough, and it's rough around the edges, and they went for the violence, and it is awesome. The Kevin Bacon kill, not to spoil if you haven't seen Kevin Bacon, doesn't make it out, guys. It's awesome, and it's gory, and it's gross, and like that's kind of what Friday the 13th got known for, all the way to the point where the MPA kind of ruined a whole bunch of Friday the 13th, which is a bummer. But, it happens. Number 2! Number 2. Between a couple on this thing. I didn't write any of this shit down, by the way. I'm just making it up off the cuff, but I still kind of stand by it. My number 2 horror movie that if you have not seen any horror movies and you're kind of worried about trying horror movies, blah, 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 it's got to be a ghost movie. But what would be a good ghost movie to watch if you've never watched? I'm going to go with 13 Ghosts. Not that it's a good movie. It's a piece of shit. But that's why you should watch it. Because it's a fun piece of shit. Man alive, is it fun. It is stupid. I'm talking about the remake. Wow, it's bad. But it's so much fun to watch. I laughed the whole way through it. And it's kind of fun seeing these big, goofy ghosts. And if you're not really into that one, you can swap out my number 2 and slide in Ghost Ship. Also a piece of shit. But a really fun piece of shit. And again, same reasoning for 13 Ghosts. It's dumb. It's fun. I have a bunch of fun watching it. Highly recommend that you do as well. And then my number 1 horror movie, it's got to be Phantasm. It's got to be Phantasm. Phantasm to me is my favorite horror movie, I think, of all time. And that's saying my favorite horror franchise of all time is Friday the 13th. Favorite horror film of all time, Phantasm. Phantasm is the weirdest, most beautiful, most fucked up, does not make a lick of sense, awesome movie I've ever seen. When it decides to be gory, oh boy, is it gory. And it is ridiculous. When it tries to be scary, it tries. Man, but it is just... I don't know how to say it without spoiling it, and I feel like I don't want to spoil Phantasm for you if you've never seen it before. But it is guerrilla filmmaking at its best. It is dreamlike horror at its best. Angus Scrimm is the tall man. Oh my God, he's so good. And then, you gotta love, Reggie the Ice Cream Man. The entire Phantasm franchise is just amazing. and everyone should watch it because it's just amazing. But that's it. So yeah, if you've never seen any of those horror movies before, I say give them a chance. And yeah, like there are a whole bunch more. You know, you can go to Hereditary, you can go to Midsommar. I don't know why I went for both of those, both made by the same guy. But you can go for a whole bunch of different horror movies that aren't really horror movies, but are also still the horror genre. You know, if you want to go for more body horror, Event Horizon can be a ton of fun. The Substance, holy shit, was The Substance just a phenomenal movie that everybody should see. Hellraiser, you got to see Hellraiser. At least Hellraiser 2. Hellraiser 1, really rough around the edges. Hellraiser 2, masterpiece. And if you want to have a good time with some buddies and laugh, Child's Play, man. Child's Play is a ton of fun. I can go on and on and on for all the horror movies that I missed. But I think with those 5, 6, 7, depending on how you take a look at my list, I think you should have a really good idea of like whether or not, you know, different brands of horror are for you. Is it the best list? No. If I'd written it down, would it be better? Yes. Am I done talking? You betcha.